Hello and welcome to Discovering Libertyville, unveiling the stories and people that make our town so unique. I am your host, David Wool, and I'm thrilled to bring you this new podcast that explores fascinating stories and experiences of local business owners and community leaders right here in a place that we call home. Jan Leisure, Diamond Residential Mortgage, has been financing Libertyville homes from the same office at 533 North Milwaukee Avenue since 1999. You may also know Jan as a former teacher, or as a college instructor, or as a journalist, contributing editor to Mortgage Broker Magazine, Mortgage Originator Magazine, or the money-saving super saver who walked into supermarkets with a fistful of coupons and walked out with $400 worth of groceries, and the stores paid her, or as your mortgage banker. Jan brings all of these skills to bring your transaction to the closing table on time. Jan has commitment, determination, integrity, and a positive attitude to make your home finance experience a great one. Jan Leisure, Diamond Residential Mortgage. My Charcuterie has the perfect boards, boxes, and grazing tables for any occasion. Get-togethers and parties of all sizes will be so much tastier when you bring their delicious charcuterie designs to the table. Their team uses only the very best ingredients to ensure creations that are always curated with the highest quality meats, cheeses, and produce. Imagine hosting a holiday celebration, corporate event, or dream wedding where everyone is blown away by the striking beauty and vibrant taste of the food. That's why they call it food artistry. For your next special event, visit My Charcuterie, located at 214 Peterson Road in Libertyville. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Discovering Libertyville. I am here with Allyson Cayce. Allyson, it's a pleasure to meet you, first of all.
It's a pleasure to meet you.
We were just chatting about how actually we got put together through our mutual friend, Jimmy Connell.
Yes,
Yes.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
He's the man of the town.
He is, and if you're listening to this and you don't know anything about Jimmy, we did do a podcast with him too, but I could have talked to him for years.
No, everybody could.
Yeah, he's
a great guy. Yeah.
All right, so we're here today to talk about, we're calling it's a pop-up art gallery. Is that what it's called?
It is, because it's sort of an under-the-radar, 30-day, quick in-and-out exhibit.
So the exhibit's only going to be there for 30 days.
30 days.
And then we're not going to say the date we're recording, but we'll say, so when does it actually start?
Starts May 1st, and it ends May 31st.
May 31st. So I believe this episode's coming out in the beginning of May. So folks in Libertyville, you have till May 31st to get there. So let's go over some basics really quick. What was the inspiration of doing this pop-up?
Well, that's not a really quick story, unfortunately.
Well, we have time.
But the inspiration was a series of the last 4.5 years working with the artists that were exhibiting by the name of Timothy Schmalz. He's an internationally famous artist who's had work exhibited all over the world. Probably most noteworthy is the fact that he's worked with two popes, Pope John Paul II. He had been blessed by him and had a piece called A Quiet Moment that was incredibly beautiful, of the Holy Family. And then he also, with Pope Francis, has been the first artist in over 600 years to actually have a piece commissioned by the Vatican and have installed in the square, called Angels Unaware. It's massive. It's about a 20-foot by 20-foot sculpture in the middle of the square outside the Vatican. So really? He agreed about 4.5 years ago to do a piece for my husband and I under the title of Mary Untie Her of Knots, which is a devotion that we started about 8.5 years ago when my youngest child's dear friend passed away from cancer.
Wow.
And when that happened, we began a prayer group for this family as a gift. And in exchange, this child has created quite a buzz in our town through the use of prayer. Wow. And she's in turn gifted us with this gift of community. And we did it under the title of Mary Untie Her of Knots. It's a devotion basically asking our Blessed Mother to help untie things that are complicating our lives. And the artist, Timothy Schmalz, created the sculpture for us.
Wow, so you have that.
I have that. And that is what, that's its own story. But basically he doesn't really make statues for individuals per se. Typically he's at cathedrals and universities and large public institutions, and so the fact that he even agreed to do this is a miracle in its own right. But
Absolutely.
During this time, one of the things that he learned about me was the artist learned that I had been privileged to do a pop-up gallery many years ago for a foundation called My Father's Love. And because he knew that I had done that, he asked if I would be willing to take custody of these statues centered around Matthew 25.
Wow.
That were installed in, I think, 2016 in Rome, all over Rome. And somehow,
stretching my head
this is
going,
a couple
how does this
year.
happen?
I know it's a twisted story. It has a lot of moving parts. I'm giving you what is, believe it or not, the very quick version. But he asked me if I would take custody of these statues. They're resin with a bronze overlay, so they're kind of lighter weight. They're still very heavy and they're still very large, but they're not meant for outdoors. They're meant for indoors because they're not full bronze, which is typically what he does for outdoor big public spaces. But he asked if my husband and I would take this job on and basically have them and then put up these exhibits, either in conjunction with My Father's Love, the other one that we do, or independently.
Right.
And currently the My Father's Love exhibit is in New York with my cousin right now. So we obviously couldn't put them together for this exhibit. But the Matthew 25 is basically a community pop-up that Timothy is actually going to be coming May 18th to the exhibit in Libertyville. I mean, this is like meeting a modern-day Michelangelo. I'm not kidding.
Yes.
And he'll be there on May 18th at the exhibit in Libertyville from 12 to 2, giving kind of a presentation and just sort of a Q&A, and we'll have some like light snacks and drinks and things. But it's an incredible opportunity.
Yeah, and he's endorsed by 2 popes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so many other places that are equally stunning and impressive. He's the most humble man. He's certainly not in this for fame and fortune, although he has that anyway.
Sure.
But he's very generous. In fact, he's doing sculptures all over the Chicagoland area. And there's actually some at Carmel Catholic.
Okay.
There's some...
My alma mater.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there's one currently being commissioned by St. Mary of the Annunciation that I just found out about today, actually, from a peer of mine. So he's all over. He just donated a statue of Thou Shalt Not Kill to St. Sabina down in Chicago for all these children that are being killed by gun violence. I mean, he's a very charitable man, impressive in so many ways. And he's actually being honored the night before on May 17th for Mr. McCaskey is honoring him for a Sports Faith Hall of Fame award.
Wow.
So he's all over the place.
Wow. So is he local? Has he grown?
No, he's actually, that's the funniest part. I thought he was a local guy when I reached out to him.
Yeah.
I thought he was from Wisconsin, to be honest. But it turns out he's from Toronto, Canada.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. And how these connections come together is absolutely amazing.
I think that's the part that blows my mind the most. Whether people are listening that are people of faith or not, whether you want to call it a coincidence or whatever you want to call it, there has been thousands. I mean, I'm giving you the brief story, but thousands of coincidences, if you will, that allowed all of this to happen. It's nothing short of a miracle.
Wow.
Yeah, because I'm nobody. I'm just a little small town girl. I didn't grow up around here. I don't know a lot of people. I mean, I've learned a lot through this process and connected. Obviously, that's how we met. Yeah. But I wouldn't be able to do this by myself. It takes a vast amount of people to make these things happen, and it has to be timed perfectly, and I wouldn't know how to do that. I wouldn't have the resources to do that. I wouldn't have the skill to do that, any of this, and somehow it miraculously works out.
Wow. Okay, so let's do an obvious really quick. So where is the pop-up going to be? Because I would get through this whole episode and I would never ask you.
Well, that's one of the best parts, is we fell into the space right on Milwaukee Avenue. It's a storefront at 130 North Milwaukee. And it's in a strip mall, and it happens to be right next to the St. Joseph Parish and right next to the St. Joseph Food Pantry. And the fact that these statues represent the corporal works of mercy, it's just too perfect.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Some things aren't accidents. I've been
No.
go on the record
Yes.
for that.
Yes.
Wow.
So I'm a member of St. Joseph Parish, and Father John Trout, the head of our parish, allowed me the privilege of using that space.
That is amazing how things come together.
I
like
know.
that.
I know.
Okay, so I want to know, we'll talk more about the art, but what is your inspiration? What is your calling to actually do this? Because I know these things just don't, a pop-up thing, it just doesn't pop up. There's a lot of work that goes behind this, a lot of dedication, so you must have a calling to share these kind of things with the community.
I didn't know that I did. That's part of the funny thing. I don't really know anything about art. I don't really know anything about assembling pop-up exhibits. I don't know anything about any of this. But I think that's the beauty in it, is I don't need to know, because I believe that God brings me the people that do know. I just have to say yes.
Right.
And I am very blessed that I am married to a wonderful man that takes on a lot of the physical responsibilities to help me with that part of it, because it's extremely labor intensive to do these things, and I just don't have the power to do that. And then all these other incredible men step into the picture to help. And even yesterday, before we were opening up, an incredibly generous man was like washing the windows on his hands and knees, like cleaning the baseboards. It's like, I don't even know these people. I mean, they're total strangers, and they just come to help. And this is how my life has happened for the last 10 years. I don't even know how it falls in my lap like this. It's honestly defies any sort of intelligence or logic. It just does. So do I have a calling? Not necessarily. It's just there's too many things that all align. And I think my calling is to just say yes when it happens like that. The timing is always perfect. May, as crazy of a month as it is, I've actually been out of town for 3 months, and I happen to be home for May. So it worked out. The space was available for the month of May. Timothy happened to be here in May. It's just the statues arrived to a different location, crated 6 weeks ago. So it all just happened very quickly. Unbeknownst, Timothy didn't know that I lived in Libertyville.
Wow.
Because we have a barn in Wisconsin where everything that I've been working with him for the last 4.5 years was located. So he never even knew I lived in Libertyville.
Isn't that funny?
So when I said, wait, you're going to be in Lake Forest with Mr. McCaskey, I live like 5 minutes from there. He's like, wait, you do?
Wow.
I said, yes, and I have all your Matthew 25 sculptures in Wisconsin. Maybe we should do this pop-up while you're here, and you could actually meet our community.
That is fantastic.
So that's kind of what happened.
Everything kind of just lines up like that.
It just lines up,
and
it finds me.
There is so cool.
Right. I mean, I know it's a busy time, but I just feel like anyone that has the privilege of making the gift of time to themselves to come, they won't regret it. He's dynamic, super humble, and I mean, he's just world renowned. I mean, his art speaks for itself. That's why I always say to people, it doesn't have to be a religious exhibit. If you're an art lover, you would still love it.
Right.
It's just the detail of what he can do is, unprecedented, really. I don't think there's any sculptor like him.
Wow. So how many pieces are in the art gallery?
So there's 6 images. So physical pieces are a little bit more than that, but 6 images, and they're based off of the Matthew 25 series in the gospel. But again, these are interactive. And so what's really nice is there's one called When I Was a Stranger, and it's Jesus sitting on a stool. And then there's 6 additional stools that you can actually sit with the sculpture. And it's really a moving piece. They all are. But one of the most popular that he's ever made is called Homeless Jesus. And actually, there is one of these sculptures, the full bronze, outside Catholic Charities in downtown Chicago. And it's interactive as well, where you can actually sit on the park bench with what you think is a homeless man, but it's actually Jesus. And that's what this whole series is. There's 6 different scenes of Jesus. Basically, he is the marginalized. He is the person in the scene. So whether it's when I was in prison, when I was hungry and thirsty, it's, you see the wounds of Christ in the images. So it actually is Jesus. It's not the homeless person. Wow. So how are you going to treat that person?
Powerful messages behind these. Mm-hmm. Wow. Okay, so there's 6 of those
total
that are, and they're interactive. That's really cool.
Yeah, and they're large. I mean, you can touch them.
How do you move these things around? It's a stupid, obvious question, but I mean,
this was an unexpectedly large undertaking.
Right.
In my arrogance and my naivete, I thought 2 people could do it.
Oh.
So my husband and I went to Wisconsin to pull him out of the barn, and we were not at all prepared. So
call in the troops.
Yeah, especially because my husband had just had back surgery, so that was very interesting. But God brought me all the right people, and it was planes, trains, and automobiles to make it happen, because we had less than 24 hours to make it happen. And this very generous man by the name of Dan Harris at St. Joe's was my go-to guy on the receiving end, and within a few hours, he had 7 men waiting with my husband in this massive truck we found in the middle of rural Wisconsin to drive it back. And my husband happens to be in trucking. I mean, praise God, because if he didn't know how to drive that truck, I sure didn't know how. And they unloaded them all, and I can't do that. So these incredibly generous men did.
Wow. So you had a lot of support from the community.
All of these are community effort. A very generous woman helped with her time, and she helped prepare some marketing materials. I mean, everybody's a volunteer. Right. And we don't charge admission.
Yeah, that's
free.
My next question.
It's free to the public. I'll ask for free will donations just off the cuff to the food pantry or to the bed ministry that goes on at St. Joe's, just if people feel called to do that. But otherwise, it's completely free.
Yeah, because that was going to be my next question: is how can the community give back to this? Mm-hmm. And that would be through donations too.
To any charity, really.
Right. I love the local stuff too. That's really cool. You tie that back into Libertyville.
Libertyville, 2 doors down, serves many Lake County families in their food pantry 3 days a week. Ironically, that's why we put those hours to coincide with that. So we're open to the public on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 9 a.m. to 12 noon. Okay. And then on Tuesday nights, 6 to 8 p.m.
Okay.
And then if people want to bring in a group and they don't really want to come during public hours, I am trying to accommodate those private appointments as well through my email, which is adcayce@sbcglobal.net.
All right, and that I'll put in the show notes too. So when you're listening to this, you can just go down the show notes and they'll have your email in there.
Okay.
So I'll make sure to put it there.
So we already have several private groups that want to come through, at different hours. I try to accommodate as best I can. And of course, I have volunteers that are helping me staff it, during those times.
Right.
So it's all just volunteers. That's what I love about these projects. Is a lot of the time I don't even know the people that are helping me, and then we become friends, and it just keeps going. Then I can help them, or they can help me with whatever, and that's what I love about these projects.
Yeah, and I think that's a good message too, because every kind of any kind of charity or any kind of things putting together, for whether it's schoolwork or whatever, volunteers are probably the most important thing. And I encourage everybody to volunteer, because you never know, because you're going to meet like-minded people as well if you're willing to do something like that. So,
and it's all different skills too, right? I think people think, well, I don't know how to do that, or I don't know anything about art, or I don't know anything about. I thought the same thing. I used to volunteer just through coaching, before I was even married or had my own children. I did Big Brothers and Big Sisters. I only knew those sorts of things, but as I went on, I realized you don't need to know. You don't need to know anything. They'll show you, teach you, whatever. Even it's just, the people that are helping me during the open gallery hours, well, what do I need to do? You need to smile and say hello. That's it.
Right.
There's nothing, you don't have to do anything.
That's a skill most people have, or more people should have too.
Right. It's not complicated.
No.
Most of the time, it's our own fears and inhibitions that prevent us from doing these things. And I was guilty of that for many, many years. Doing something like this, 10 years ago, if someone had ever told me that I would be doing this today with you, I wouldn't have slept for days. I would have been riddled with hives. I would have been so nervous and stressed out. And many years ago, a wonderful man by the name of Father John Hennessy said to me, Allyson, you just need to get out of your own way. What are you worried about? What are you worried about? And I said, well, what I'm worried about is when my sister got married, I didn't even do the maid of honor speech because I just don't do that. I don't like to have people looking at me, listening. I don't really have anything worthy of even saying. And he's like, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. And I said, well, I just don't like to do that.
And so get out of your own way.
Get out of your own way. And so it is very funny. It's actually comical that these exhibits have fallen into my lap because I've been asked to do these things more frequently, not certainly not a lot, but I used to still be terrified about it. And now it's an honor. It's a privilege. I'm humbled. I'm grateful to share these things, but I didn't do anything. It does itself. So, it's really not anything more than a miracle that these things happen. I think it's wonderful to share artwork with others. I had no idea the impact that art can have. My Father's Love exhibit, we saw probably about 75,000 people come through over the course of the 7 years that it was in the greater Libertyville area.
Wow.
And that's free of charge as well. I kid you not, I learned so much from everybody, and I got way more out of anything I put into it. And everyone that volunteered there would say the same thing. It was a privilege to be able to do it. And this art exhibit, I think, will equally be the same way because art has a way of touching people that other things just can't. Right. And the beauty in these sculptures draws people and touches people. You don't even have to say a word. Mm-hmm. That's the thing about it. And, I never studied art. I really don't have any real knowledge about art. But a lot of other people do, and they can add value to it. And when Tim's here, nobody better.
Well, it's truly amazing, and I do like the fact that even though it's the Matthew 25 exhibit, that it is a religious exhibit, but it's not. But it sounds like the messages would resonate with from children to any age range. So this isn't like limited or anything.
In fact, my neighbor was outside. She's got 3 little baby girls, and she said, what's your latest project you're working on? Because she knows I'm always doing something fun. I think that's the beauty of it all is that there are no ages with this one. Yeah. And what's really cool is that there is one of the sculptures that's nearly on the ground, right? So it's maybe 2 to 3 feet tall tops.
Okay.
And the way a child would view that sculpture is very different than the way we would.
Absolutely.
And I actually sat on the floor to try to get a perspective, just to see what it would be like, for a child or someone really tiny. And their view is going to be a heck of a lot neater than ours is.
All about perception, right? Well, that's
so
cool.
It's really cool. And I think, the homeless Jesus, a lot of people may or may not have ever seen that before. It's all over the world.
I've seen a picture of that
It's
somewhere.
the most replicated of his statues of any of them. And it's funny, 15 years ago, I was in Austin, Texas, unbeknownst to me who the heck Timothy Schmalz was. And I was with my sister just for the weekend. And we were like, wow, that's the most incredible sculpture ever. And I said to my sister a month ago when this all fell into my lap, I said, do you remember being in Austin, Texas 15 years ago? Well, fast forward, hold on, but guess what? I have one. And she said, you've got to be kidding me. I said, no, she lives in Florida, so she doesn't live here. But I said, no, I have a Matthew 25 in that series, The Homeless Jesus, that we saw 15 years ago, and it meant nothing to me.
Right.
I mean, it meant something to me when I saw it.
But powerful enough for you to remember.
Yeah. It touched us so much. We were like, wow. But I didn't really know the story. I didn't know the artist. I knew nothing other than it was a super cool sculpture and really moving. It was outside of a basilica right in downtown Austin. Well, it comes to be that is, I think there's over 30 or maybe even 40 of those throughout the world. All different countries, all different major cities. In fact, my husband was in Singapore last year for a business meeting. And this is not a Christian country, and there was one outside a cathedral there.
That's amazing.
In Singapore, and I nearly fell out of my chair. I couldn't believe it.
There must not be any bigger honor to have those replicas around everywhere, because how powerful and how touching is that? It's unbelievable.
It is. I'm almost overwhelmed every minute of the day that I'm in there. I just feel like, how did we get so lucky?
Right.
How did we get so lucky? And I have an obligation to share it with as many people as I can. I mean, I can't force anybody to go, obviously, but I have an obligation to try my best.
Right.
Because it is a huge honor. Right. It is a huge opportunity. It is not going to happen again. Right. It was just the perfect scenario. Right. And I really do believe that God made it happen for this very moment. I don't know why. I don't really question that. I just know that it did, and it's here. And
right. Well, thank you for bringing
Tim
it to our community.
is so generous to come and physically be here.
Yeah. Okay. So how old is Tim?
He's my age, I think.
So 26.
Yeah.
You guys have done a lot in 26.
26 and a little more maybe, but no, he's probably in his early to mid 50s.
Yeah.
And travels the world. And
wow, he must have such a cool life that he actually gets to do his passion and then watch people appreciate it and go around. And I'm sure he's completely humbled by these honors to do what he loves and to share the message with people. It's very cool.
For sure. But what's also really wild about him, I feel like I know him, but I actually was supposed to go to Toronto and meet him 4.5 years ago, but the borders were closed. Oh. So we had to do it through FaceTime and emails, and it was a bizarre way to do a statue, but oddly, probably perfect.
Right.
And now to actually get to meet him, I mean, he is in high demand. I mean, this man is a celebrity artist, and that's putting it mildly. But he works at crazy pace, to do these. The demand for his work is exceptionally high. And he, like many artists, I've come to learn, he might spend 18 hours in a row working on one sculpture. He might take a quick nap and get right back at it.
And hyper-focused for 18 hours.
Yeah, hyper-focused. And there's a lot of videos out there of his work, of him creating them. I would highly encourage people to go look on YouTube to watch, because it's incredible what sculpting is. And people might think they know, but it's different than making a bowl. This is precision, and he's using a tool that is so little for the detail that it blows your mind. And how sculpture was actually, how he does full bronze sculpture is not been modernized. It's very archaic. From I don't know, he'll be able to tell us better, but I think from the 15th or 16th century. I mean, it's the same way to do it as well as he does it. He uses a foundry. It's a very labor intensive process, and it's wild. And there's a lot of really neat videos out there.
I'm gonna check those out today.
That are really fun.
Yeah.
Just to see how it's done, because it's not like a painting. It's not like other art forms. Sculpture is very difficult, and it's time sensitive because you're dealing with clay.
Blows my mind.
It's wild.
Yeah.
And how the clay becomes this bronze sculpture is just
amazing. I'm going to go look at the process of how he does everything, because I think that's absolutely amazing.
It is.
All right. So we want to make sure, again, just to repeat it too. So from all of May. To be there. And could you repeat the hours for us one more time,
So
please?
We'll be Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 9 a.m. to 12 noon.
Okay.
And on Tuesdays, 6 to 8 p.m.
Okay. And if someone's listening right now and they want to have a private group come through, once again, we're going to put your email in the show notes here so they can email you and request a private showing.
Perfect.
I really appreciate everything that you're doing, and it's so cool to bring everything. Like the story of Timothy it's amazing, and that all this comes through to Libertyville right here.
It is. It's amazing.
And he will be there once again. That's May 18th from 12 until 2.
Right.
So that's open to the public.
Open to the public.
Listening, you can just come right in, and that will be absolutely amazing to see the man behind everything. It really is. I mean, give yourself the gift of time if you're available, because I used to say that a lot with the other exhibit. Give yourself the gift of time. It's a gift, and it really is unprecedented, really, that he's just going to be open to the public at an exhibit. It's never happened before. So absolutely, I encourage people. I know it's a busy time of year, but it's we can make everybody. If you're available and you're not at a graduation or a first communion or whatever else is going on, Well, I'm going to be there no matter what. Yes, I think that'll be very cool. Well, once again, I appreciate everything you do and bringing this to our community. It's absolutely
It's my pleasure.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
And thank you for your gift of time being with me today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Libertyville, thank you so much for listening. I encourage everybody to go check out the exhibit. I think it's a wonderful once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And actually, that May 18th will be wonderful as well. Also, if you're listening, make sure to check out the episodes, everybody, especially the people that you don't know from our community, because I think it helps bring people together and hear the stories, whether it's an event or an artist or any local business. I think that really helps out a lot. And as I always end, to get out there. We never know what our friends are going through, or even strangers on the street. So I'm going to encourage everybody to do make it 2 random acts of kindness today. It only takes a couple seconds, so whether bring a smile to people's face. So I do challenge you for that. So Libertyville, once again, thank you. Make sure to subscribe on any listening platform you're on, whether you're on Apple, whether you're on Google Podcasts or Spotify or even YouTube. That way you'll be alerted every week when we have a new episode from somebody of our community that comes out. So once again, thank you very much for being with me. And everybody, we'll see you next Tuesday.